I had to leave my children. I see a lot of people talking about psychology on this app, about how when you're in a toxic relationship, it's proper to set boundaries, and sometimes that means even leaving behind the people in your family. I don't hear a lot of people talking about leaving your children behind, adult abusive children. Well, it happened to me. It was a karmic situation, and I had to leave. And let me tell you why. I've given birth to 4 people. 4 people exist in bodies in this world because they came through my womb. I no longer have contact with 3 out of 4 of those people. The first one was never mine to begin with. The second one was a karmic relationship. And the third one was also a karmic relationship, which was the most difficult. I'm going to tell you a brief story about the third child that I brought into this world. My third child was my beloved child. I loved this child so much that when they were born, I could feel this energy of familiarity. I raised this child until when they were about 14, things started shifting. I started feeling like this child doesn't seem familiar to me anymore. I don't recognize my parenting in this child. That actually happened for 2 of my children. All of them, really. I don't recognize them as being familiar to me. I know through dreams and past life memories that my third child came to me in our first lifetime together. I was a wealthy individual in Marseille, France, and my husband and I were traveling along the street, and we saw children begging, and I fell in love with one of these children. It was a beautiful little boy with curly hair and big, beautiful eyes, and I couldn't stand the thought that this child was living on the street. So my husband and I took in this child and their family, and we brought them into our lives, and we took care of them, and they became part of our household. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but they didn't appreciate what we were doing. They were actually taking advantage of us. They actually were not homeless. They had a place to stay, but they were begging on the street, giving people the impression that they needed a place to sleep or something to eat. And I fell for it. And I didn't realize that they actually were not homeless. They were not actually living on the street. They had a place. So throughout this lifetime, this child and their family lived with me, and I took care of them, and they never appreciated what we did for them. And so we died in a karmic entanglement. That soul and me have had this lifetime together, where that individual, that child that I fell in love with on the street, became my child. They came into existence in this lifetime through me. So we have a parent-child relationship, and I adored this child throughout their life. I gave them everything. I spoke to them, I trained them, I taught them, I spoiled them, I loved them more than anything. This child was my heart. So when they started becoming abusive toward me, when they started their teenage years, I was confused. I didn't understand what was happening. And eventually, I felt like, as soon as this child turns 18, because they were my youngest child at the time, I'm going to leave their father, because I was never happy. For 18 years, I suffered in my marriage, which is a different story. But I didn't make it till that child turned 18. When the child was 17, I couldn't take it anymore. It was time for me to leave. I was moved out of the situation. And then I tried to keep the child in my life for many years. I tried to bring them along with me, and the abuse just continued, and it continued to escalate, and it got worse. And I even went no contact for a year. And then they called me and told me that they were going to have a baby. And so that kind of sucked me back into the relationship, which was not healthy for me. And it's also not healthy for the child. See, this is a karmic relationship. This soul and I got involved. that soul did not appreciate me, and I could not accept that soul's suffering. I could not accept the lessons and the experience that that soul was choosing. And so, because I didn't break the karma in that first lifetime, I had more lifetimes with this individual. And now this is the lifetime where I am supposed to get free. I have to accept what this soul chooses to be, the experiences that this soul chooses to have, and it's more intense. The intensity is increased because the feeling of, now this is my flesh and blood and I have to leave. This child of mine has now brought a child into the world and I cannot have anything to do with it. It's tougher. If you don't break the karma initially, then it comes back to you and it's even more difficult. It's more entrenched, and you really have to be committed to your evolution in order to get free. So my reason for making this statement is to remind you as souls, those who resonate with this message, that if you are being called to let go of somebody in your life, you must do it now. If you don't, you will continue another lifetime, and it will be even more intense and more difficult for you to get free of this karma. Let me know if that resonates with you. Namaste.